Chronopunk, a novel, episode 5. In this episode, Simbi and Mounir get together and start a relationship. The parents of Moody are shown, the trajectory of their lives is shown, and their relationship is described in a romantic and also in an action-driven way. I think it's important for characters to be built based on their past, whether that past is geographic, historic, or personal. Like in this case, in my preference is usually personal. I like to build characters through people. I'm very highly influenced by people like Steinbeck. East of Eden is a classic here, where he goes back generations and builds characters. So I'm definitely standing on the shoulders of giants here when it comes to character building. It's my intention to show the nature of these people as raw as I can. So I would say stylistically, I'm certainly not a flowery writer. That also comes to my limits of how I write, but it's not just that. It's my intention to show the people as they are, as raw as possible. So Simbi, we introduced her already before in previous episodes. She meets Mounir. Mounir is Moody's father. He was also introduced already, but now we're getting, the rubber meets the road here. What are they actually doing? And there are two facets in this episode. One is the relationship between Simbi and Mounir, which is a relationship of love, romance, and fight. Real fight, literal fight, because Mounir's a fighter. He actually becomes a successful MMA fighter. MMA permeates throughout this novel as a metaphor for a lifestyle. I've already discussed this in previous episodes. The idea here is not just to talk about the sport, which I'm a fan of, and I like to write about it, but also to use it as a sort of a metaphor for a lifestyle of excellence, of training, of full, wholehearted embodiment of excellence. So it's not just the skills in the cage, but it's the nutrition, it's the mental strength, and I attempted also to bring in some action here. So there are parts in this episode that will hopefully grab the reader's attention in terms of just pure action. So I'm not just writing about MMA. My attempt here was also to bring in actually a fight sequence full at best as best I can. It's obviously quite a high bar to try to replicate the intensity of a fight that you see visually in words. But this was my goal here. So this is going to happen in this episode. And the other facet is the scientific facet. So Mounir is not just an MMA fighter, he's also a scientist. And he's actually working on time trajectories. And I think there's a passage in this episode which I find very important from a scientific perspective. Just before I go there, I want to reiterate, this is not a scientific novel, so we're not questioning the validity of time travel or even the physics of time travel, but we're asking some interesting questions. For example, one of the questions that Mounir brings up in one of his TED Talks is the question of precision, okay? What does precision actually mean? In other words, when we say we want to have, the hard sciences are precise, or we want to have a precise reproduction of reality, what exactly does precision mean? How far down do we go? To the particle level, to the subparticle level? Is it okay if we use emergent factors such as, for example, what thermodynamics does, that they just use atoms and their averages? So where does precision start? Where does it end? Another interesting question is time, which is part of the precision question, right? If you change the measure of time, everything else changes. And then the question of dark matter comes up, for example, which is currently something that we're struggling with as a scientific community. We don't know what dark matter is. We know it's there, but we don't know it. And it could be that we're not able to detect it, or it could be that our measurements are wrong because, let's say, our time measure is different than it should be, and therefore all the cosmological constants are different, and therefore dark matter is just an indication that we're doing something wrong. So those are really deep questions, deep scientific questions that I sometimes struggle with also in life in general. We can ask ourselves, okay, well, what is the unit of measurement? You know, in a hedge fund like ours, in Orange Capital Partner, do we measure our daily volatility? Do we measure our annual returns? Do we measure our 10-year returns? Do we measure the dollars actually made? What is it exactly we measure? And those are difficult questions to answer sometimes, but they're worth asking. So there's two facets to this episode. There's this MMA fight, romance kind of section between Simbi and Mounir, the parents of Moody, hopefully laying the groundwork for a character that is going to play the pivotal role in this novel. And then there's also the scientific questions, the scientific philosophical questions that physics and time travel and generally philosophy brings up, such as, for example, what happens when we change our measurement of time. And I think I just want to say one more thing. One of the most interesting things about the physics discipline, in my opinion, is this ability to look at the world from a different perspective, right? We can look at the world in terms of, okay, we don't understand what is dark matter, or we could look at the world, or we might be wrong in measuring time, and therefore dark matter is just an indication that our time measurements are wrong. So that is, is just a personal favorite of mine, and also my love for physics actually comes from that from that angle. Thank you.